Welcome back to EGX. Last year we did a panel celebrating 25 years of GoldenEye, and now we're back with another to celebrate 25 years of the greatest 3D platformer ever made, Banjo-Kazooie. I've completed Banjo so many times, I can complete the in-game language, I can translate the in-game language, and so I'm naturally extremely excited for this as we've reunited 4 of the original game developers here at EGX. So please welcome lead programmer Chris Sutherland, character designers Steve Mayles and Ed Bryan, and composer Grant Kirkhope.
All together. Here we are.
I think they were going to join in, Grant.
Where are you all? Come on.
Welcome to EGX. Hello, everybody.
Thank you very much, Chris. I hope people can appreciate the shirt you got on there, which has got some jiggies.
Yeah, this is from Fangamer. If Fangamer are here, I'll take that royalty. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning with a story of Banjo-Kazooie, right? So you had your big hit in Donkey Kong Country. You're off to work on a new pirate adventure game called Project Dream, but it didn't work out. So what went wrong?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think what happened was perhaps it was too ambitious, so we probably were trying to do too much too soon, and with a new technology, a new system, new console. So for me, that's where we went wrong, probably trying to do too much. But that ambition, I think ultimately, if there wasn't a dream, there wouldn't have been a Banjo-Kazooie, because a lot of what we did there helped us understand the ideas and the technology and the gameplay and ways we needed to do things so that we could actually build Dream. Admittedly, we did throw a lot of that out, but yeah, that's my thought on that.
Is that what you remember, Steve?
Yeah, so Dream started out originally on the Super Nintendo. It was the Donkey Kong Country team split in 2. Half of us went to do Donkey Kong Country 3, and the rest of us wanted to do something new, which was where Dream started on Super Nintendo. But it quickly became apparent with the N64 coming on the scene that by the time we finished it on the Super Nintendo, the SNES would have basically been a dead console. So that's why it moved onto the N64.
So how was it throwing all of that work out? It must have been quite difficult, quite galling.
I think for code, it was actually not too bad, because we were still able to use a lot of that infrastructure. There was something we did have, which was kind of there was a 2-dimensional look, which we'd taken from the DKC games, and we'd kind of tried to use that to give us kind of a high-resolution effect, and we kind of had to jettison that, because that really didn't work when you try to, if you've got all these billboards, these 2D billboards, and you try and turn the camera around, it just looks a bit odd and doesn't really work out. So we jettisoned that side of things, but a lot of the other things, that was underlying code, although the moveset may have changed, the underlying code remained the same. And I think tunes-wise, musics-wise, I don't know what happened.
Yes, I threw out 110 pieces of music from Dream, so I wrote 110 tunes to Dream, and I just had to throw them all away. So I wasn't very happy about that.
Can we get the Dream soundtrack? Do you think they'll...
Some of the Dream stuff's actually on YouTube. A friend of mine, Adam Vieira, remember Cool Boy Man? Remember him? Cool Boy Man, remember him?
Yeah.
So Adam Vieira is a programmer guy. He backwards reversed engineered the cartridge and managed to get all my Dream stuff to work. So it's on YouTube somewhere. Quite a lot of the old tunes is on there. And I did recycle some of the tunes from Dream, I think, into Banjo and into DK64. Some of it did, and some of it made it into Viva Pinata, actually. But yeah, I wrote a lot of music for that, and it got thrown out.
So in those days, you weren't allowed music at Rare. It had to be complete silence. But me and Ed got around that by having Grant's Dream soundtrack on play all day, and we said it's a part of the game. So that's how we got around the no music rule.
Oh, I see. So the soundtrack lived on as the soundtrack to The Office. Did you have to throw away a lot of art? Was a lot of art thrown away as a result? Was a lot of art?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, there was all the Super Nintendo stuff, although I can remember at the time not being too disappointed because, I mean, we'd had like the 2 Donkey Kong Country games, you know, we knew what a successful game looked like, and I didn't think like Dream on the Super Nintendo ever really, you know, looked like that, or it's going to be so much work to make it that successful game. And likewise the early versions on the N64 as well, they didn't feel like they kind of had that magic ingredient. So I remember at the time thinking, oh, you know, I'm glad you know, the company's had the balls to cancel it, you know, and move on to something that's hopefully going to be better.
Oh, good. Well, you did move on from Dream to a sort of 2.5D version of Banjo. I've heard of this. Was that like Crash Bandicoot? Was that what went, and why did you abandon that version?
So that version, I think we were trying different things. So we got rid of the kind of the camera tilting because that wasn't working. Like I say, it just didn't look right when you tilt the camera and start moving it around, and you just got flat, plain sprites. So we then went for, like you say, a kind of it's like a forced 2D, 2.5D look. And we got so far on that, but I don't know if it was more us that decided it or if it was more external. I think you could probably tell the story.
Let Edmund talk. Edmund.
I can't remember why we swapped from that 2.5D, but I remember there was a game called Pandemonium that people really liked, that kind of side scrolling kind of, we kind of went in and out of the screen, didn't we? We had levels that sort of did that. But I'm guessing that we kind of just, when you start seeing Mario, you kind of go, well actually let's just make a leap and make it properly 3D.
And then of course there was an internal title which was being worked on, which had taken a different approach and taken more of the Mario 3D approach, and they were using actual polygons for the characters and backgrounds, and we were taken over to be shown that and said basically this looks, you know, better than what we got, and so we need to kind of rethink our approach, and so we did go back and have to kind of rework everything really and kind of go for that approach, but it's more.
Yeah, hang on, I remember, right, Chris has been a bit diplomatic, so we were doing the Banjo thing, right, but the Dream thing, there's all this kind of elaborate floor system, it's all stretched all over the place, and then we got, one day Tim Stamper came and said to us, you need to all come and see Conker. So we all went to see Conker, and they had this fantastic thing, it was just like Mario, looked amazing, and you know, it was like, yeah, so their game looks great, your game's not working, you need to do that. And so we were like, so we had to start all over again, and we all like came back from the Conker bar like, all depressed because it looked so fantastic, and so I had to get a whole new thing started. I think that Stephen Hurst got the very first like Banjo level like knocked off at the same look as Conker within about a week or two, wasn't it? It was like super fast, wasn't it?
It was all very quick. I think when you talk about going from the Super NES to where we're now talking about, I looked up, it was 6-8 months, it was quite quick. So when you were talking about throwing stuff out, it was a shame to lose stuff, but compared to like nowadays where things take so long, it's like, well, it was just another thing to do. So
I mean, it makes you wonder why, you know, we couldn't have come to that conclusion a lot sooner, that we should have done the full 3D, because, you know, we'd seen Mario 64 quite early on, and we'd seen how cool that was, but I think it was partly because of coming off the Donkey Kong Country games, we didn't want to make the full jump to 3D, that's why we ended up doing that kind of halfway house of a 2.5D game.
Yeah, I think it was that we didn't want to sacrifice that look that we were kind of known for on DKC, and then we're going to go to these more polygonal things with kind of lower resolution textures, so that really wouldn't, we felt, that felt like almost like a drop in quality, but so we kind of discarded that idea, and it probably took a bit of time before, you know, somebody had to kind of show us, actually, you know, you can do something that looks really good.
I just find it fascinating that it was Conker that influenced you to go down the route rather than anything else, particularly as that game arrived years later in the end.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
I think we had this, because at Rare at the time, you had the separate barns and areas, and the teams were kept very sort of separate from one another. But it was that kind of moment that was always really good, because you'd see something that someone else had done, and you'd be like, oh, bloody hell, and then you'd go away and you'd up your game. And it, you know, it wasn't always great, but it had quite a positive, I always thought it was quite a positive way of working myself.
It was ironic that like Conker sort of started before us and had such a great looking game, and then we kind of had to change our game to be more like that. But we came out before them. Their game got delayed through lots of internal nonsense, and then they came out after us, right? So it's a bit weird how it all kind of worked. But I think we were glad we saw the Conker game because it made us change what we were doing, right? But and also Robin had written great music for Conker, and I was like, oh, I need to try and write something that's more platformy, you know, because I'd written music that was kind of RPG Mario-y, so, you know, because it was like, because Dream was an RPG, right? And I had to change to write kind of jolly platform music. And like, I remember Tim Stamper said to me, right, you need to write a tune to prove that you can do it. So I was frightened, thinking I'm going to get fired, right? So I actually wrote, Click Clock Woods. That was the first piece that I wrote for the new Banjo game, but I was just trying to write a general jolly platform piece. So when I came to do Click Clock Woods, I thought, oh, that fits that, so I used it for that. It wasn't written for Click Clock Woods, I just wrote it at the start of the game to try and not get fired, right, son?
So Steve, tell me about how Banjo came about. How did that character come about?
I think the sort of the seeds were probably set in that period after Donkey Kong Country 2. I remember Tim Stamper he'd just come in and say, oh, you know, let's do a bear character. And I remember doing this one in this like waistcoat, you know, it wasn't very good. I remember doing a polar bear as well, but I can't honestly remember what these are for. I'm sure Tim had an idea in his mind. But then the story moves on to so we had the character Edson in Dream, which was a boy character, and the game wasn't really going anywhere. And I think by that stage, people had kind of got fed up looking at him as a main character, and we kind of thought, oh, you know, we've had success before in doing animal main characters. Let's try that. So that's where the need for Banjo came along. But I think, although I can't quite remember, I'm sure Tim must have had an influence saying, you know, make the character a bear, because I personally never did any kind of little sketches of like different characters. And again, I can't remember him never having the backpack and the yellow shorts either, which again makes me kind of think that was probably Tim directing the character saying, oh, you know, make it a bear, give it a backpack, you know, that sort of thing, although, you know, it's kind of lost to time, really.
What about the rabbit character? What up to the rabbit?
That's my next question, Ed. Tell me about the rabbit.
Well, I think Steve's right. It just kind of happened, but I think Tim had asked to do like an animal, because I went back, and I think at the same time I had to go at this rabbit character, but I did look. I've still got a load of the files, and in the folder with the rabbit, there is actually a bear model. I haven't looked at it, but so I think I probably started off with a bear, and it turned into a rabbit, or vice versa. But it was all the same time. I think we just wanted a replacement character, and it was going to be an animal, and you know, and because he was in Dream, you know, there was that overlap where the bear ended up, you know, being in that N64 version of Dream. So, but the rabbit was no more.
Are you upset about the rabbit? Is this a touchy
scarred me for life? Yeah.
He really was upset.
No,
Really
it was
upset.
shit.
Really upset.
It was right. No, it was. You know, Banjo just came, and obviously that was the right character. So
Well, the rabbit never even made it as an NPC, so you could.
no, exactly. No, to be fair, it probably did somewhere down the line. But yeah, I can remember the rabbit running around with his sword. Yeah, he had a star on his front, but just went by the wayside. It's fine.
What could have been?
And
Andy again.
Wasn't Kazooie the result? Sorry, Chris, are you going to say something?
Sorry, was that?
Are you going to say something?
No.
And Kazooie was the result of the idea of you needing a gameplay mechanic for the movement. Was that right?
Yeah, I think the creation of Kazooie is probably more interesting than Banjo, in that it was kind of it's just one of those accidental processes in game development. You know, we never set out to have a buddy duo. Kazooie started out as because with Banjo being, we were trying to ground it in reality a bit more. So like where Mario does his double jump, he jumps in the air. You know, we wanted to give a reason for the double jump. So it was, oh, let's have, you know, let's have some wings pop out of the backpack. And then Greg was like, oh, we need a fast move. So we had some legs pop out the backpack for the fast move. And then we had all these kind of different parts. So, oh, you know, why don't we just have a whole character in there? And that's, you know, complete accident how kind of the buddy duo came about.
Great. Well, we had the GoldenEye team on here last year, and they told a story about how everything they did was basically a first. And it's similar here for you all, right? You'd never done 3D before and N64 before. You were working it out as you were going along. Why do you think you managed to get so much right, despite having no experience of doing this?
I think there was a number of things. One is, yes, it was first, but we had Mario 3D as some kind of template or something we could look at and kind of go, oh, we were trying to do this, how did they solve that? So that's one set of things. And then I think the other thing is, because we've been working on Dream for about as part of a year, like I say, we kind of experimented with a lot of techniques and systems, and kind of had an idea of where the problems were. So when we actually came to build this thing, and we thought we need to just get this thing built, this new idea and this new plan, we were kind of able to move pretty quickly, actually. So I think that was the reason. So really, as again, I could say, if there wasn't Dream, then there wouldn't have been a Banjo. So you have to be thankful for that.
Well, great. Well, I know some people may have heard this story before, but I always love it. So you're making the game's coming along fine, but you know it's not going to make it for Christmas, right? So you go to E3 1997, and you're having a meeting with Nintendo. What happened? Grant, do you want to start that one?
I can start that one, yeah. So we went at E3, right, and there was this, you know, unveiling Banjo, and we got told we're having a meeting with Howard Lincoln, right? Howard Lincoln was the #2 at Nintendo, Mr. Arakawa's right-hand man. He's a very quietly spoken, big, tall American guy, and we had the meeting in the basement of the hotel, and the whole team was there. We got kind of dragged down to this place. And he came and he said, hello, my name's Howard Lincoln. I'm so-and-so title of Nintendo. We have $5 billion in the bank and no debts. That's the first thing he said to us, right? He said, I just want to make clear to you guys about, we've set aside some money for the Banjo advertising budget. He said, he reeled off like, we've got 10 million for this, and 5 million for this, and 20 million for that. And we were like, oh my God. He says, so just want to make sure that you guys understand that you can't miss Christmas, right? We already knew there was not a chance of us getting the game done for Christmas. Not a chance, right? And we all just sort of smiled and said, Howard, no worries, mate, it's going to be done. Yeah, don't worry. It's been brilliant, right? So we all left that meeting going, what the shit are we going to do about, he's going to kill us, right? When he finds out that we can't possibly make it. So when we got back to Rare, Tim and Chris Damper broke the news to Nintendo that there wasn't a hope in hell of us getting the game done for Christmas. So Nintendo said, well, what have you got? And so at the time they had Diddy Kong Racing. It was called something else then, right? So said, look, he said, we haven't got Banjo, but we've got this for Christmas instead. They can take Banjo's advertising budget. That's why Banjo-Kazooie are in the racing game, right? They were supposed to come out after us, so no one knew who they were, right? So said, put the get the Donkey Kong characters in there, call it Diddy Kong Racing, we'll have that instead. And so that's what happened, right? And so they got all our advertising budget. They sold tons of games. They all bought themselves sports cars, and we were all like, oh my God, you know, we'd lost all the advertising. We were still trying to get the game done, and we came out the following summer, right? So, but one of the team called Graham Smith, after our meeting, right, he was so upset. We were all going, let's go out of the town, it's going to be great, well, you know, we're going to have a great time. And he's like, no, I want to stay in my room. He was so depressed. He was like white as a sheet. He was shitting himself that Howard Lincoln was going to somehow, you know, murder him in his sleep because we couldn't get the game done. So yeah, that was a great time.
Is that how you remember it?
Yeah, we had I've still got it somewhere. There's a sheet. We all got given a sheet, and it had a timeline, as I remember, about like, you know, sort of finishing the game and going through all the Nintendo testing and stuff. And then it was like the advertising budget would be locked in, and you'd be making all the promises to the distributors and all this stuff. And then it would be like off to manufacturing, and then there'd be a month, you know, it would be distributed to Toys R Us or whatever. and then coming out at Christmas, and I remember I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was along the lines of if we agree to all this and then we miss it, some poor guy in Toys R Us who's bet all this money on having that stock will get into a lot of trouble, probably lose their job.
Yeah, so we had probably 2 levels done by when we showed it at E3, and they're expecting us to finish the game in a handful of months. I mean, honestly, they should have known it was an impossible task, but we were lucky that we had, I think it was called Pro-Am 64 then, that became Diddy Kong Racing, which allowed us, Rare, to stay on friendly terms with Nintendo.
We were very lucky, not only in that situation, but I think a lot of times we had this kind of insulation between like the team and Nintendo, and Tim and Chris and Simon and people. So there was there must have been a lot of heated meetings and stuff, I'd expect, but we were quite insulated from that.
Yeah, and I think the intention of that meeting that we had with Howard Lincoln was to kind of, because we were obviously just trying to make the best thing we could sitting there, and if we had to redo things, we would redo them. But I think we weren't thinking day to day that poor Bob, who's in Toys R Us, might lose his job if we change that model several more times. That's it for Bob. And so, yeah, that wasn't something that was in our minds. And it's difficult to keep that in your head, really, when you're trying to make something the best thing you can do, really. But yeah, that's how it was.
Also, I remember, I read that book, Game Over. It's the story of Nintendo. I don't know if anyone's read the book. And it talks about how Nintendo got the Donkey Kong character. There was that thing where the people that own the King Kong movie were trying to say you can't use Donkey Kong, the King Kong, the name, in any form because we own that name. And I think Howard Lincoln was a real shark as a lawyer, right? So everyone knew. After I read that book, I thought, oh my God, this he's really softly spoken. He's an absolute shark, and I thought he's just going to murder all of us when he finds out we can't get the game out. So after reading that, it was even worse,
So that's how you met Howard Lincoln, Grant. You know what I'm going to ask. So I think it's that E3 you met another video Nintendo legend, right?
That's true, yes, I met another... this story, right, I must have told it a million times, but it's that thing where, we had lots of funny little things we used to do, because we're all sat on the team for years together, right, so we know each other really well. And we had this jokey thing that we used to do, and you're going to say it's just me, it was all of us, right? In the summertime...
Let me just say that I don't recommend anybody that does this.
It wasn't just me. In the summertime, we used to wear shorts because it was really hot, right, with no air conditioning, right? And so we had this weird thing where, when it was your birthday, you brought a cake in for the team to share. I don't know, like 15, 12 of us, whatever it was, right? And we had this thing called cake slap shorts down, right? So when you stood there with your cake, someone would go like that with the plate, go up in the air, and you whip your shorts down like that. So one of those little daft things that we used to do. Anyway, so, I know it's just one of those things. So when we were at E3 Atlanta it was, and I'd only been there a short period of time, and I was so happy to write the meeting for Banjo at the time, right? So Mr. Miyamoto was there, and I saw Tim stamp up his chat to Mr. Miyamoto, because Tim can speak a bit of Japanese. So when he finished, we were all really drunk, because at these parties at E3, you just get hammered, it's all free booze, right? So we're all smashed. So I kind of stumbled across to Mr. Miyamoto and said, I tried to say, I'm Grant, I wrote the music for Banjo-Kazooie, and he kind of said, he nodded like, he doesn't speak a lot of English, right? And then I went to the bathroom to take a pee, right? And at the urinal, George Andreas, who was one of the designers on Banjo-Kazooie, was having a pee in the thing. So I was behind him trying to pull his trousers down from behind. I was on my knees actually going, get his trousers down, come on, like this. And George just kind of had one hand on his trousers and one hand on his private parts having a pee. And just as I was doing that, I looked up and Mr. Miyamoto was stood right there. And I kind of went, hi. And I just thought, and he just looked to us all went like that. I just thought, Jesus Christ, what's he going to think of me? I just sort of said to him, so that was it. And I haven't seen him since, so I'm hoping he doesn't remember it too closely.
And here he is tonight.
And here he is!
So you've worked on 2 Mario games now, Grant. Miyamoto's still ghosting you after that?
Well, I've got to say, when I did the first Mario Rabbids game, right, I went to E3 with the team from Milan and Davide Soliani, and we were all stood in the Ubisoft booth upstairs, and I was thinking, all of a sudden they all disappeared. I was like, oh, where have they all gone? And they're all gone to take a picture with Mr. Miyamoto, and they didn't even invite me. So I was just stood there like a spouse thinking, what's going on here? And they're all having a great picture with Miyamoto. So I don't know whether he said, don't bring Kirko, because he's, you know, he's a trouser puller down person. I don't know. So I never got to meet him, so that was that.
There was a memo. There was definitely a memo.
Don't bring Kirko, yeah.
Well, I was going to talk about the personality of the team really shines through in the game. And I understand you talked about this prank. I understand there was a fair few others. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Well, there was the systems we had there. There were these new machines we had, so they weren't PCs. They were Silicon Graphics indie machines. They were all based on a Unix system, which was really intended for a university. So you were running a machine which intended to be used by multiple people at once, and so it was expected by default. It was kind of quite open, and so, you know, in today's environment of privacy and security, this would seem to be almost unimaginable. But you could do things like if you had your machine and you were editing something on there in one room, I could remote log into your machine. I could issue a command which would grab the screen and I would be able to see what you were looking at on your screen. And then I could do things like we could actually play music and other things through your machine from my machine without you knowing. And that was used to some effect by our audio team.
Not me, surely. No, I didn't do that, never.
We used to do it was lunchtime, we used to play GoldenEye in Steve Hurst and John Lash's room. And then, so we'd all sit down after whenever, 12:15, and then halfway through the game, you'd just get this cacophony of like sample after sample, because some prat had queued up like 40 minutes worth of rubbish, and it would just come blaring out of the speakers whilst you're trying to play.
We used to do like, I used to do little jingles, right? I'd have like jingles and like rhymes about Ed, rhymes about Steve, and I'd like, you copy it to the guest account, you could log in and turn the volume up to 10, and you could play the samples, and like, my first experience of that, when I first got to work at Rare, like, I was in a little thing called the Chicken Shed, by myself, and like, the old Rare was very close to a little village called Twycross, and Twycross Zoo was just up the road, right, which is like a really quite famous zoo. And my first experience of this, right, I was sat there late at night, 8 o'clock at night, working on GoldenEye when I first got there, and all of a sudden there was these monkey noises like came out of the speakers, and I nearly shit myself. I thought, Christ, there's a monkey's escaped from the zoo. It's in my room right here. So that's when I learned how to do it, right? So it's to copy all the stuff to their machines and play jingles out of the machine. We had like lots of little funny little rhymes. It was like, you know, it's one of those things you do because you got when you got bored. But you know, we had lots of that stuff going on. So I'm not completely blameless, but it wasn't just me. I think these boys did it as well as I did.
There was no escape either, because you know, we would turn down the volume, but remotely you could turn back the volume up. So we had no idea. It was just like something pop out of there.
There was a lot of camaraderie, right? You also had a point in the day where you stopped and talked about things that weren't to do with the game, and there's a lot of cultural bits.
Yes, we called that Tier 3 because in those days it was kind of frowned upon, I suppose, to have too many breaks, but I think Tier 3 was tolerated because we did work really hard and we worked a lot of extra hours. But every day at 3 o'clock, Grant would come down from his little music office, and we'd go into Greg's room. You know, we'd have some tea. It was always somebody's turn to fetch the Maltesers, and we'd have a little chat and, you know, put the world to rights, basically.
Well, that's very nice.
I think truthfully, you used to just take the piss out of people. So 3 o'clock, get your tea on, take the piss out of each other for half an hour or 15 minutes and back to work.
Pull down the shorts.
And the short, if it's summer down, shorts down in the summer. But we all learned to get really tight belts. So even though you pulled on the shorts, you couldn't get them down.
They learned.
Unless you were new. If you're a new person, the shorts were down.
Oh dear. I don't. Different time. Well, what are you most individually? What are you most proud of from your work on Banjo-Kazooie?
For me, it's the fact that 25 years after making it, I can sit on this stage here, and all these people come here to hear me talk gibberish and try and remember what actually happened back then. So that's, I mean, what can I not be more proud of than that?
It's incredible turnout.
Thank you.
What are you most proud about the game?
Yeah, I guess I'm proud of the the amount of work we got done really in such a relatively short space of time. Myself and Ed did all of the characters and all of the animation, and although no one was saying to us, you must work all this extra time, we were happy to do that because I was having a great time really trying to make a special game. So yeah.
Oh blimey. Probably it's kind of the same sort of thing. I don't think there's any one like asset or anything like that. There was this little moment in time about a year and a half where there was this team and we made this turned out amazing thing. And it was that whole moment, just that little bit of time. I think it was just amazing.
I gotta say, I think like doing that game, right? It was the first game that I did all the sound on, like all the music, all the sound effects, because Gulliver and I worked out with Graham Norgate, so it was my very first game I did it by myself. But I've got to say, without being a little bit lovey-dovey, that being mates with these people, like we had such a good laugh as a team doing it. All that humour in the game, right, was just the piss taking we used to do day in, day out with each other, right? So I feel like all that humour is bled into the game, and we've been mates for a long time now, and I think it's to be part of that little team at that period of time was brilliant, right? And also like Chris says, for the game to last 25 years and people still care about it after all this time is massively humbling, right? Usually games last 6 weeks, 6 months, I don't know, it's gone, so for the fact that you people still want to talk about it with us old people, 25 years later, and we're going to make it another 25. I'm not sure. I might be dead by then. So I probably. I think I'm older than these guys, right? So I don't know whether I'll still be here, but if I am, it'll be even more amazing. So I don't think any of us take the fact that you people like it so much all this time later. We don't take that lightly. That's a fantastic thing, and it's hugely humbling. And the fact that you care about what we say about anything is amazing. So. Thank you, thanks to you all, you know what I mean? So, it's great.
I think Grant was just jealous of Chris's applause. He wanted
I need to go on a bit more than that, but yeah.
This might be the same answer then, but is there like a specific thing or element of the game? What do you think is the best thing about the game? Whether it's something you did or something that is it?
Well, it's obviously the music, obviously, first.
The best thing?
I don't know, during the development process, there was so many things that amazed me, having never, worked in 3D before. This is like going back to like 1997. So, the first time you could swim in water, oh my God, that's amazing. The first time Banjo could fly, that's even more amazing. I think for me, I just remember like standing on the Clanker, in Clanker's Cavern, standing on the, the whale shark, whatever it was, and just having Banjo standing on this massive thing that was moving on the N64. I just think that, that was amazing.
It's a great one.
Best thing, well, the Jinjo's beat Runty at the end, so I can't, but the same sort of thing, it's just when you run about and jump and just all this stuff, it all flowed together, and it was just lovely to sort of move around, and the level design and just that whole kind of package really for me.
For me, I guess, like when we did the voices, right, all that talking stuff that the kids did, we had no memory space. They couldn't possibly talk, like, fully, right? So we had to come up with a system so they made a noise, right? And it took a while to get it right. And, the fact that it sounds even half decent is like ridiculous, right? The fact that all that kind of thing that they do, so me and Chris worked on that quite a bit. We had to work out how to make the syllables, it was normally like to make it too robotic, it wouldn't work, so we had to kind of assign a voice sample to every syllable, so it was like disjointed, like more like human speech, right? We had to work out that then if one sample plays before the next one's finished, it's got to cut it off and like to sound more speechy, but even though it's appalling, it's pretty dreadful. It's funny, I remember when I did the first interview for the Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle game. I met with the guys in Paris, and they said to me, "Oh yeah, the Banjo-Kazooie speech is so iconic. We want to recreate it." I was like, "What? Are you crazy? It's absolutely shit, you know." So I think that to say that it was iconic, I was a bit like, "God, are you deaf?" So that was fun to get that to work, you know.
Chris, do you have a favourite individual thing?
I think just the fact that you could move around in 3D, which, you know, this is the first time we've had an analog stick on a controller, and the fact that you could use that and you could just, it seems crazy again now because everybody's so used to it and they're born into this environment, but at the time that was just something that was quite revolutionary. So yeah, I just picked that, the very fact you could move in 3D.
So I'm going to ask one more question, but there is a little bit of time for some fan questions. So we do have a microphone in the middle there. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then it's open to you all. So if you want to join a queue, start a queue, I'm rushing forward. Right, one more question from me before I give it over to the people that will ask far more interesting questions. If you were given the ability to completely remake Banjo-Kazooie today, what would you change?
The music.
Well, I never did. Wankers.
That wasn't rehearsed at all. I don't know, it's difficult to say because in that context, you got to think, well, if we were building it today, we'd have to take into account what everybody thought about the game, and, you know, people have such a love for it that you'd kind of be really cautious about changing certain things because it's going to upset some people. So it's really actually quite difficult to do because there's certain things you think, oh well, I'll change this, make it maybe less of a collectathon, maybe we'd make it so that when you go into each level, you don't have, and you come back again, you don't have to collect all the notes every time. Like, so that's kind of, it was quite annoying, but obviously that was fixed on the 360 version. Yeah, so I don't know, it's a difficult one.
Yeah, I think I'd make certain challenges a little bit easier, specifically the engine room jiggy on Rusty Bucket Bay, which I'm sure is the bane of many Banjo players, and also I guess we'd introduce things that we didn't have time to implement that were implemented on Banjo-Tooie. Things like the edge grab would have saved a lot of pain on Click Clock Wood in particular. And bosses, of course, that's something we really wanted to do on the first one that we couldn't do. We only had, there was the crate boss in Rusty Bucket Bay and of course Grunty, but yeah, bosses.
Every time I think about this sort of question, I always think, oh, I wish I'd made more of an effort on stuff, because we look at this, you look back now at the game, and I think, oh, I wish I'd got that level thing, texture not, it didn't line up quite right, and this character kind of got away with it at the time, but maybe if I'd spent a couple more days on it, so it's just that kind of, it's quite remarkable thinking that, it's still something that people enjoy so much today, but at the time you just kind of rush through this work, and now, I think if I was going back, I think I'd revisit odd bits and pieces just to try and make things look a little bit better.
You wouldn't change it for a rabbit then?
No.
And I got to say, I wouldn't change anything. I think it's a masterpiece. So I think that, I feel like I was a really small part of it. I feel like these people here did the brunt of the work, and I just kind of fiddled around on top a little bit. So I feel like these gentlemen here are the real stars of Banjo-Kazooie, I think.
Thank you.
Yes, that's the best you're going to get, right?
Has he made you feel guilty now? Right, let's have some questions. Please introduce yourself and ask us your question.
I'm Luke, lead sound designer for Fire Game Studios. I just wanted to ask how the transition from N64 to GameCube, then to go to Microsoft, landed. Like, Banjo disappeared basically for a really long time, and I just want to know, was there other stuff that was worked on that didn't make light of day? Obviously Nuts and Bolts eventually happened, and there's lots of little cameos in like Viva Pinata for Banjo, but is there other stuff that was never seen that you would be able to talk about maybe?
Well, we, immediately after Tooie, we started on Grab by the Ghoulies, so that must have, when was that? That would have been the end of 2000, I think. So we all started doing that because I think we just, well, Greg especially, just wanted to make something different. So when did Nuts and Bolts start? I'm trying. It's all a bit of a blur, to be honest. But there was a while where there was no banjo. I think we were just doing Ghoulies.
Yeah, we had that project. It was tentatively called just Banjo-X, wasn't it? Where we had, I mean, there was just like a sort of skeleton team on it, really. There was maybe like 2 or 3 people. The idea, the basic idea being that you'd have, it was going to be like a multiplayer thing. There'd be like 4 banjos in the world that could like team up and do stuff.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, it was.
And that eventually was deemed to be like a non-starter, and then it transitioned into Nuts and Bolts after that.
Yeah, I think it was a kind of physics-based thing. So you'd have seesaws and other things that you could use. I think it was around the time where we were looking at the Havoc physics engine, and so we realized that there was a bunch of things we could do with that. And so, yeah, having multiple banjos interacting with physics, that was kind of the way it was going. I think it was codenamed Banjo-X. So obviously no Elon Musk at that time, but yeah.
I mean, with that GameCube thing, we had Ghoulies was running to begin with on a GameCube, I think. And then we went over to a PC, and then the Microsoft thing happened, and that was kind of fixed.
Yeah, Ghoulies was running on GameCube, and then we had to transition to Xbox. Yeah.
I hope that answers your question. Hello.
Hi, I'm Aaron, and I have 3 questions, 2 of which are quick and easy, and one of which is more of a discussion. But first off, why is it called Banjo-Kazooie instead of Banjo and Kazooie?
I don't know that.
No idea.
I don't know. No, there's no reason really. That's just the way it was.
Second question, will we ever see a vocal performance from you, Grant, like you gave on doing Bears and Birds by Big Bad Bosses?
What?
And would you ever do that again?
Oh, well, I suppose so. I mean, I know Gerard really well, the completionist guy. So, you know, he just said to me, do you want to come and rap on a track, right? I had no idea. I said, hey, I'll come along. I don't know. But my wife said to me, whatever you do, don't swear. She said, when you did the Game Grumps thing, you just swear all the way through it. She said, and I didn't, he said, like, my kids' friends at school, I'd stumbled across, oh, Mr. Kirkhope's on this Game Grumps thing, and they put it on, it's like me effing and blinding to the whole bloody thing, right? And so they were like, oh, man, the parents were like, God, turn it off, turn it off. She said, whatever you do, Grant, go do the rap, but don't swear. And Gerard said to me, don't worry, Grant, we're not going to get you to swear. So when I went to the recording studio, the lyrics is just me swearing the entire bloody thing, right? He said, don't worry, we're going to bleep it all out. I said, oh, fair enough, so I did it. He said, oh yeah, we're not going to bleep it out, we like it as it is. I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. So like there again, my wife's going to me, I told you not to bloody well swear, and there you are again. All the kids, my kids knew, Mr. Kirkhope swearing again, oh my God, I got told off for that, so no, I'm not doing that again, that's it.
And lastly, what would you say is the most important part of designing a 3D platformer?
Well, I'm not a designer, but
Yeah, but I mean making in general, I misspoke. So whatever.
Well, there's a number of elements, but one of them is obviously the controls. I would say that, wouldn't I? Just the feel of it, the feel of the character, so that when you're moving things around, it feels like responsive and natural. But that's one of many parts, so it's difficult to pick out one in particular. Anybody got any?
I always say this, but just that running around from A to B, you know, like a bit like Chris has sort of said, how it feels, and just that, you know, it doesn't matter if you're not doing anything, you're just moving through the level. That, you know, I think we made that feel really good, and I think that's often missing in things where, you know, you just wish, it just was a bit tight.
Brilliant. Thank you. Hello.
Hello. Thank you. Congratulations on 25 years of Banjo-Kazooie. Amazing game, masterpiece. And thank you for optimizing it for 50 Hz. Most N64 games are not optimized for 50 Hz, and they're and they run like crap. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. I actually have a question for Grant, because as we all know, Banjo and Kazooie got their appearance in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate 4, and you actually worked on the remix for Spiral Mountain. And I want to know, what was the creative process for that? Because I can imagine after so long having this remix, is it like did you have any sort of inspiration for it? Were you trying to make it for like a new audience? Because there's a new generation of Banjo-Kazooie fans. So I was just wondering.
So that was like a really great thing. So I've been working on Mario Rabbids, and Davide Soliani, who's the creative director, said to me, Nintendo are trying to get hold of you, can I pass on your email? I was like, of course you can, you don't do it, you know. So, I got an email saying, dear Mr. Kirkhope, there's something with like your assistance on, are you interested? And I kind of thought, you know, could it be Banjo? I thought, surely not. I thought Banjo would have been in Smash Brothers by now. I thought maybe they're trying to put the Rabbids into Smash Brothers. So I finally got the email from them, and I got to sign an NDA, and took a while to get that signed. And when they finally told me it was Banjo, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, Banjo's going to be in Smash Brothers. It's unbelievable. And then said to me, we'd like to do a track. And I was like, you know, all the composers who work on Smash Brothers in Japan are all fantastic composers, right? They do fantastic remixes. I thought, why do they need me to do it? Because they're way better than I am, right? So I was really flattered that they asked me. And Mr. Sakurai doesn't speak very good English, right? So I had to go through a guy at Nintendo in Kyoto, who's a Scottish guy who works there called Paul Logue. And so I communicate with him, and they sent me like a PowerPoint document that sort of said, this is how the music needs to go, a 4-second introduction, keep it quiet, start off big, then wind it down, and then loop it around. That's what they said to me. And they said, you know, there's lots of points like, don't communicate with other composers, it's all very, very hush-hush, you know. So I did, and he said, do any music you like, whatever you want to do, it's up to you. So I just chose Spiral Mountain. I didn't know the level was going to be Spiral Mountain. I didn't know that, right? They didn't tell me that. So I wrote, and I started off with like, the music, it's got that banjo bit in the middle of it. So I started off with the big orchestral bit, went quiet with the banjo bit, and he said, oh, we don't like that. Could you change it round? Start with the quiet banjo bit, then go into the orchestra bit, make it as big as you like. And so I just did that, right? And like it was amazing. They were really happy. He said, oh, they loved it. And like, I did a few versions of it because they kept saying, turn the reverb down. That was all they kept asking for. But then when I found out it was Spiral Mountain was the level, I couldn't believe it. And then this emailed me and said, we're going to use it for the trailer. When the game got announced, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So, you know, when that video went live, when they announced Banjo and Smash at that E3, right? I said, I'm going to do a little video to say, hooray for Banjo-Kazooie back in Smash Brothers. So, well, can we see the video? I had to send the video to them, they had to vet it, say it was all right. What are you going to tweet out? I had to tell them I was going to tweet. And then they said to me, you can't say anything until it's live on the Smash Brothers website, right? So even though they'd announced it, and my Twitter was going like this, like, you know, I had to just sit there for 2 hours to wait until 11 o'clock. Right, you could tweet it out. So I was like, yeah, it was me, I did it, you know, like that. So that was one of those moments, I think for all of us, that to get Banjo into Smash Brothers, you know, the fan reactions that we saw online, and the Nintendo store in New York and all over the place, and Gerard's crying, I was crying, we're all you know, that was a really special moment, that was. I think there's times in your life that things happen, I'll never forget that. That was an amazing, the people were so happy to see Banjo back in anything, right? That it was amazing. That was a fantastic experience, that was. I'll never forget that.
All right, thank you so much for the remix, and thank you so much for the response.
Woo. Hello.
Hi guys. There we go. Yes, keeping the Smash Bros conversation going. What was everyone else's initial reaction to Banjo getting into Smash Brothers?
It was just a big deal. It was like after all those years of sort of everyone kind of wanting something, just to see it actually have happened, and to, well, I guess all these things are always kept quiet, but it was just like just a big moment. I think you had hinted, I think, that something was happening.
Honestly, I was sworn to silence, so I couldn't say anything about it.
But yeah.
It was a bit surreal for me, like looking at Banjo and Kazooie and thinking, oh, you know, I didn't do that, because in previous games, I'd always done the Banjo and the Kazooie and the animation, so I'm kind of looking at it kind of really critically, but I can say they did an awesome job on the animation, I think.
Yeah, for me it was interesting because I know there have been rumours about it for some time, and there's questions of is it going to happen or isn't it, and then I think I didn't know any different until about a day or so before when I got a tip off from somebody that said that this is happening, and I couldn't quite believe it either. So I was still watching the direct thinking, is it actually going to be there? And so I was as fooled by their kind of double bluff that they did as anybody else. And then obviously then I heard the go, and then that was it. So wow.
Yeah, I got to say, like, you know, people kept saying to me on my Twitter, you know, Banjo and Smash, but like, you know, and I genuinely before like January, I didn't think it was going to happen. They contacted me in January, so I had to lie for about 2 or 3 months, saying, oh no, it's never going to happen, and I felt bad about that, right? And I feel like now no one believes anything I say on Twitter anymore now, because they'll think I'm just lying, you know, that there's a Banjo 3 going to happen, and honestly, there isn't so far, right? Like, you know, so I felt bad about lying, and I feel like no one trusts me ever again. But
You
that's
can say that.
It was nice to have Donkey Kong. I thought it was nice they brought those characters into that world with Banjo. I thought that was a nice touch. So thank you. Thank you. Hello.
Hello. I'm a little short for this one. So my name's Aaron, and I'm a freelance composer, but my question is a little bit boring, but it's for any aspiring composers and studio devs. From your experiences throughout your career, how important would you say is understanding and utilizing the music copyrights for people in this day and age? Because there's so much more resource available for everyone to learn from. And
so you mean like tracks are copyrighted, right?
Yeah, understanding how to use like the publishing rights for cue sheets and stuff like that.
Yeah, so there's no cue sheets in games, right, currently. Cue sheets exist in movies and TV. If anybody doesn't know a cue sheet, right, it's kind of the Bible. So when you see any movie or TV show that gets made, the cue sheet lists any music, the duration, the writer, and the publisher. That's how you get paid, right? The composers get paid from that. But there's no residuals in games. Like in movies and TV, you get residuals, so gets shown on TV, the composer gets paid. In games, that doesn't happen, or not yet. So I feel like it's not as essential in games to know about that. That may change in the future, but right now, games don't do that. There's no cue sheets in games. So, and I kind of feel it's a bane of our existence in some respects. Like movie composers might work on one big movie, and they can dine out in it for the rest of their lives, right? If it's a big giant movie, where us games guys might get paid decent money at the start, but then you're going to wait for the next game, right? So you might go, you know, one day, 1 week, or 1 year till you do the next game. So you've got to make the money last. So that's my life, right, as a freelancer. So, you know, obviously the Donkey Kong rap is in the Mario movie, right? So I was thinking, ooh, I wonder if I can, you know, get myself in there, you know, like that, you know. So I've not managed to get in there yet, and I was kind of a bit pissed off that they didn't credit me at the end of the movie. I felt like they could at least put my name on it. I did get a response from Nintendo about that, so a bit of a strange one, but that's what they decided to do. So that was a shame, but right now, cue sheets don't exist in games, not right now.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jay, been a lifelong Banjo-Kazooie fan. Thank you so much for making it. So my question, completely hypothetical situation. Microsoft and Rare have said, right, it's time to make a new Banjo project, but they're not involving any of you. How would that make you feel?
I think, I mean, obviously there was a new Killer Instinct that was remade, and that was made with a completely different team, and they did a great job. I would imagine that the same could be true of a new Banjo game, so I wouldn't expect to be involved, but I'd be interested certainly to look at it and play it, definitely. But, you know, yeah, I suppose I would actually like one to be made, even if, you know, just for interest's sake, and just because I enjoyed obviously the process of making the first few. So having another one made, that would be great, but whether that's going to happen, who knows?
I wouldn't expect to be involved, but it's kind of hard to let go. It'd be a situation similar to Smash Brothers, really, where I can kind of see my characters up there, but this time I've kind of had nothing to do with it, which will always be a strange feeling, I think. So.
Yeah, I think I'd be okay. I think there'd be an element of you kind of missing out on something, but I had my go making something, so I'm a bit. Yeah, I think I'll just let it go.
They can't make it without me, let's face it. I'm sorry, boys. If I'm not in it, I'm going to sue. No. I guess I would probably expect to be involved, but I feel like it's different for me. Like, these guys have already they already work at Platonic, right? They've got jobs, I'm a freelancer, so I would expect to be involved a little bit, maybe. But I don't know. But I also feel like, I think to make a Banjo 3, they'd have to find the right team, right? That would be that's the key to it, right? And I feel like they could get people that can make it look right, all the rest of it. But the sense of humour that game's got just came from us, right? And the rest of the team, right? We've been kind of, it just bled into the game, right? So I feel like that's the part that's hard to capture. You can make it look right, you can make it play right, but the humour part of it, that'll be the hard part. So finding a studio that could do that, I think it's hard. And without me, it's impossible, let's face it, so
Thank you.
We might have time for one, maybe. Definitely have time for one, maybe two more questions, but I think we're going to run out of time after that. Let's go, Vic.
Hi, I'm Matt, and I'm a bit of a content creator in Straight.
Hang on, keep turning the mic down, just pull it down so you can tip it at the top. That's it, that's it.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm Matt, I do content creation, and I specialise in Easter egg hunting. And how does it make you feel when you see your game referenced in other video games?
How does it make you feel when you see that your game referenced in other video games?
It's just nice, because I think at the time you want the things you make to be successful and sort of whatever, but I'm still amazed that people still find this stuff sort of relevant, because I think at the time you don't take any of that for granted, so the fact that something will crop up somewhere else, yeah, it's just amazing. It's really, really cool.
Yeah? Anybody else? That's it.
You don't like it?
Quick,
It's nice.
next question, quick. Turn it down, that's it.
So in the, oh my gosh, in the Xbox 360 version of Banjo-Kazooie, they made it so the notes save every time, but that was not in the original version. Was there a reason why that wasn't in the original version?
Chris?
Just like a technical thing.
I'm not sure what that reason was, or whether it was more just we felt that maybe people would want to go back and pick them again. But I think the probably learning from that first game was that people would have preferred that those were saved, so that's why in the second game I think we made that change. And I suspect that's why the change was made in the 360, although I don't really have any insight directly into why that change was made in the 360 version, sadly.
So it wasn't like a technical reason or anything?
No, it wasn't a technical reason, it would have been a gameplay decision, so we could have done that, yeah.
I quite enjoyed the challenge of having to...
It could have made your life easier, but obviously chose not to.
Okay, we do have time for one more.
Hi, George Cheel here. What is your favourite level that never made it into the first game, or the sequel?
It's the one.
Well, I'm trying to think. The mine was going to be in the first game because I'd started making that. Maybe, I can't remember. I'm trying to think if there's a level. Come on, you got...
No, there was that, Chris Peel did a lava level, didn't he?
The lava level.
There was a lava level for the first game, and they didn't make it at all, did it, I don't think?
That was it.
Yeah, there was the...
Oh, Hellfire Peaks.
It was two sides.
Hellfire Peaks got a bit of it, but Chris Peel, one of the guys, did a lava level, but didn't make it in the game at all.
Well, that was in the sequel, like...
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
Okay.
Last question for that man behind you, that man there.
So, Brentelda gives a lot of Grunty's secrets away. Are there any that didn't make the cut?
Say it one more time, I missed that.
Okay. Brentelda gives a lot of Grunty's secrets away to you. Are there any that didn't make the cut?
Any secrets? You're not going to remember that.
I don't know, that'd be a question for Greg, wouldn't it?
I think Greg would know the answer to that. We don't know the answer to that one. You've got us there.
Yeah, he's stumped.
10 points to you.
Final. That is all we have time for, literally running down to 0. The Banjo team are actually going to hover around the meet and greet area, so if you wanted to get something signed or say hello, they've only got limited time, but if you do have time for that, they'll do that. But thank you so much. Big thanks to the Banjo team.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.